Alright, hi everyone, SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. I'm back again, twice in the same day. You guys are really lucky. Luckier than I am. If you didn't see my previous video, again, I'm recovering from wisdom teeth surgery. I had half them removed like half a month ago, and the other half just a couple days ago, and that's really fun. I highly recommend it. Anyway, so I want to share this game because it's essentially a moral victory. So what is a moral victory? Almost by definition means, not a real victory. But what was happening is again, I'm having a wisdom teeth taken out. I feel great. My chess wasn't doing very well either. So I just completed the woodpecker method, and I was expecting my rating to jump up 600 points, right? And my immediate returns, I think I lost 50 rating points in like 15 out of 20 games. So it's like, really? But then things started turning around. I played that King's Indian game I shared earlier. You can see my previous video. And then I played this game, which I lost. But if you look at it, my rating, I'm almost 2,000 again. Wow. My opponent is almost 2,300, right? So he's 300 points higher than I am. And yet, I outplayed him rather substantially throughout this game. And I ultimately lost on time. No surprise there. I'm not exactly the roadrunner. So I want to share that because, again, it's a moral victory. It feels good. And there are times in which we win games when we play really poorly, but our opponents play worse, right? That doesn't, is that good? Is that bad? Okay, your rating points go up, but it's if you keep playing poorly, you're going to get bad results. Similarly, if I keep playing like this, okay, and just not lose on time, good things are going to happen. And possibly I spent so much time because my opponent was high rated. But anyway, we'll see. Let's take a look. So I want to share this game. So the opening is something I don't think I've ever played before. It's this b3 in the Sicilian. Alright, if I have, it's been a very long time. So I play knight c6, bishop b2, and then the idea with e6. And the idea is, yeah, if he plays bishop b5, that's fine. I can play knight to e7. I challenge the bishop, and then I retake with the knight. My pawn structure is fine. And then I know in a related idea, one of the annoying parts about this bishop we can see is that it's pressuring g7, so it's hard to develop this bishop. And can I get rid of that? Excellent. And I can't play this. I lose the rook. That's not very good. Playing e5 puts a massive hole here. And so the idea is to play f6, which I agree looks ugly, and maybe it is ugly. Maybe it's not the right idea. But in certain variations of the regular Rosam, I'm just going to invent something here. So there are positions in the Rosalimo, if I remember how this goes, where white will take and play an early d4. Let's pretend it's an early d4. Okay. And in positions like this, black will often put almost. I'm just inventing something, but trust me, I'm not making this up. This isn't delirium. Black does play f6 in similar positions, and if I can find it afterwards, I will. Screw it. I got a book. Give me 1 second. I'm back. Got the book. This is the Easy Guide to the Bishop B5 Sicilian. You can see I got it for $6 at a used book sale like a long time ago. And I've read about 5 pages of it. But I have read this. So the idea here. All right. After Bishop B5, G6. Yeah. Bishop takes. D takes. Okay. Castle. So I was close. Castle. Bishop G7. Rook E1. Knight f6. No, it's here they recommend to play f6, and Salov got a good position against the very same opponent who was Kasparov. This is Kasparov-Salov, Dortmund, 1992. Alright, so you're thinking, WTF, right? f6, but Grandmasters play this against Kasparov, no less. So there you go. And again, the idea is simply to block everything up and then to slowly expand later. This is a long-winded way of me saying this f6 wasn't just a mouse slip. No, this was actually intentional. And here, Wow. You can tell I'm not normal, right? Like, there's something wrong with me. Namely, I've lost my wisdom teeth, and maybe I've lost my wisdom. The idea with f6 is that I can now move my bishop, and I'm not going to lose anything here, and I'm also just blunting this. And something very similar happens, right? When white plays g3 and bishop g2, often black will play c6 and, d5, something like this. This is the exact same thing on the opposite side. Is it a bit more weakening? Yes, because it's near my king. However, white has already exchanged his light-squared bishop, right? Light-squared bishop is gone. Boom, boom. So having weak light squares like this diagonal doesn't matter as much. Long-winded way of me saying f6 is a good move. He plays f4, then he plays c4, which is like, I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I could have played d5 right away, but against a high-rate, I'm missing a castle. He develops his knight. Now the computer, for the next little bit, it's trying to tell me that I should be playing f5 and doing things along that lines, which is like sort of a weird Dutch-like position. Maybe. I don't know. Honestly, at this point, I'm not so much, I don't really have a plan. I'm just trying to put my pieces on relatively good squares, and that's tough, because I don't have a lot of good squares. The general idea is that I have the two bishops, and so I want to slowly first finish development, even if it's on, crappy squares, this and this, that's fine, because then, sooner or later, I can prepare a pawn break, either b5 or d5. And then, once the pawns start getting exchanged, and I have a solid position, my bishops will start to have more and more pull. That's the idea, at least. That's, I mean, does that sound pretty hairy theory? Yeah? Is there really much specifics there? Not really. That's the general idea. Anyway, it's kind of funny, because this is my idea. I ended up playing f6. I don't really know what I'm doing. But I'm able to outplay someone who's 300 points higher than me. Let's take a look, because, okay, so before I was just justifying, let's take a look now. So d6, he then plays d3. I play b6, which is a loss of time. Again, immediately with b5, or rook b8, because we're going to see in a couple minutes I'm going to play b5 anyway. But I wasn't sure where I wanted for my bishop yet. Bishop d7, bishop b7. I mean, they both kind of suck, but let's take a look. He moves his queen over. Okay, I jump in. Take, take. Let's do one more move. Knight e2, e5. This is my idea. Let's do one more move, actually. f5. That's a lot of moves. So, here I have no open lines. I want some open lines. Let's see what happens. So I jump with my knight in. All of a sudden, I have one good piece. He immediately takes it, moves the knight. Okay, so I'm going to play e5. I lock this down. And we can see I've come a long way from when I first played f6. Right, barely have any space. Now my pieces are very good. This bishop has quite a good diagonal to here, where now the bishop is staring at absolutely nothing, and it's a really crappy piece. And especially after white's next move, with f5, we can see how the battle lines are drawn here, is that he's got the classic space here on the king side, and this is all pointing over here. So he's going to be trying to attack. And specifically, he wants to get g4, g5, maybe h4, h5, open lines, yay, everything's great, and then checkmate me. It's harder for me to do that on this side. I mean, I can play b5, that is what I do. I ended up playing b5, but I'm kind of attacking pawns, nothing. He's attacking my king, right? So this is, we can see that, g4, take. Then here, I think he makes a mistake, practically, when he takes with this guy. Actually, no, the computer says that after queen b6, where I'm threatening e3, king h1, a5, and white's, okay. Maybe he knows best. At the time, it felt like him taking with the b-pawn was a mistake, just because it opened the queenside lines, and that's going to let me eventually do what I want to do on the queenside, right? Optically, I'm taking with this guy, right? You see how the pawns are all closed? The queenside, there's no play for my rooks for my queen yet. That said, the very common idea is to play a5, a4, and if you sacrifice a pawn, If you force one, if I can exchange, right, then all of a sudden the b3 pawn's much weaker. If he takes, then all of his pawns are weak, and I've got the open b file anyway. And if he pushes, well then that square is weak, and then this square is also weaker, and I have time to capitalize. Though concretely, it's queen b6. Interesting. Maybe I should have analyzed this game before I start talking about it. Anyway, rook b8, immediately attacking his bishop. His bishop moves. Bring the queen over to d7. And here, we can see, if you look at my time for the next few moves, so I'm at 2:15, and then it's 1:40, and then 1:20, and then 1:20, and then 1. So I'm taking an eternity. I have half as much time as he does, where he's like moving super lightning fast. And one of the hard things is, again, it's really hard for me to have a plan. And the other thing is, we can see that he's coming right at me with these, with his pawn assault, right? And then I'm playing bishop d7. He's bringing his queen over like this. This looks scary. But I came up with a really good idea here. And if you get nothing else from this game, the idea of the rook on the 7th rank being an excellent defender. This rook, and later a well-timed pawn push. Actually, let's just take a look. He plays g5. Then I take it, which immediately does not look like crazy, especially when I play g6. You're like, what's going on? I'm opening lines against my king. But not really. If he were to take, well, I would take here. He has to take with the king, right? And now I'm going to get my rooks over. Okay, let's take the pawn first. And okay, so if I can draw lines better. All of a sudden, things are going very well for me. This bishop sucks. It has nowhere good. I can even invade on the queen side, and my pieces are much better than my opponent's. That's not his. He opened lines for me. That's not what you want to do. In the game he played f6, I dropped my bishop back. And now, give white like 18 moves in a row. How does he break through? Okay, he can't. His pawn's in the way. His pawn's in the way. So he can't do anything on the g file or the f file. That's not going to work. The center is completely blocked. If he tries to attack over here, he's not attacking my king. And if anything, black is better on the queen side. I got, a bit more space over here. I control the only open file, right? So the only way he can break through is on the king side. And that would be specifically the h file. So let's imagine, maybe, okay, that's, But then what? Okay, he puts everything. Maybe he even magically gets this guy over here. But then what? Right? I'm controlling. Okay, so maybe if he triples, he's got everything. But I could always do something like this. And my rooks on the 7th rank completely stop everything. He can't come down in here and try and checkmate because of my bishop. And even if the bishop weren't there, the rook is also controlling the g7 square. And so this rook is going to repel all of white. There's nothing white can do to break through as long as this rook's there, and he can't chase the rook away. There's no other sacrifices. Even, what potential sacrifices might there be? There's nothing here. And that's hard to realize right away. My opponent doesn't realize it right away. He keeps trying to attack. We can look at his moves, right? He plays pretty much as that. He moves his king. I don't know what that move is about. You see he's bringing things really, really close to me, but all of a sudden I break through. So let's just back up, actually talk about these moves. All right, so he brings himself closer. I don't know what to do, so I developed my bishop. This was a pretty silly move. I could have just played, queen a5 or queen b4 immediately. So I'm talking about, okay, white can't break through, but what's black going to do? So I need to do something on the king side. And so I ended up playing queen a5 with the simple idea of I need to get my queen somewhere. And most of the queen side's kind of annoyingly covered. But if I can sneak my queen into c2, then maybe I can play like rook b8 or move the other guys around or something. At least, I'm pretending to do something. And I'm attacking his weakness. And this actually ends up working extremely well. And the only reason it doesn't work better is because I have 30 seconds to his 2 minutes. Good job, Smithy. You're excellent. But we can see that he's trying to attack. Queen a4. He's bringing more things over, but all of a sudden, Queen c2. He blocks with f2, and it turns out that I could have won instantly with queen to c3, in which I'm attacking his rook. The rook can't move. Whoops, that's dead, and it can't stay there. And, you know, bishop b2 doesn't work because I control that square more than he does. I would have won instantly. Unfortunate. Of course, I just took a pawn because I had to move lightning speed. And even this is still completely winning. White's center is collapsing. My pawns are going to march. Everything is coming up Millhouse. Like, we're just smashing in. And even though I end up playing this extremely accurately, despite moving, you know, with just a few seconds, right? Rook comes in, threatening to exchange rooks, threatening the bishop. He comes in here. All right, let's win a pawn. Excellent. He tries to sacrifice something. I don't care, because if I accept sacrifice, all of a sudden maybe you can play g4, maybe you can open lines. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. I just take this pawn. What are you going to do? What's the follow-up to knight h6? There is nothing. Do you want to go here? All right, I'm going to take you. And the center, everything is still blocked. All your pawn, this bishop can't even help. There is no attack. And we can see how my opponent, if we back up, you know, back here, he had 2 minutes. And then, you know, he's moving quite quickly. And then he has to slow down because all of a sudden he realizes there is no attack. There is no breakthrough. I'm just catching up. Win the pawn. Win the pawn. He plays queen g4. Okay. There's nothing he has. I now attack his rook. If the rook moves, he loses the bishop. That's exactly what happens. Exchange. Come down to d1. This forces off the queens. Again, this guarantees there's no counterplay against me. Then he has to move his knight because he was on pre. Rook slides over. And we can see what's happening is I'm up like a gargantuan amount of material. About what, pieces and pawns. I'm just going to queen a pawn. And the only thing, again, that stops this game from being super is that I have 2 seconds left by the time I'm up a rook and a piece. And I make it close, right? If I would have pre-moved this, I then could have gotten some checks. Maybe I pick this guy up. If I can pick up the pawn, I at least get a draw, according to the rules of Blitz, right? But I couldn't quite do it. Darn it. But at the same time, I completely outplayed and potentially out-understood a position of about an opponent 300 points higher than me. Woof! Like, okay, so I lost the game, but, you know, as far as moral victories go, it's pretty darn good. And again, it started, excuse me, in a funky opening where I ended up playing an unforced f6, but what else am I going to do? And I have no space, and when you look at right here, I thought I was actually going to be in trouble at first, because again, he's got the easy g4, g5, h4, h5, right? There we go. Like, he's got a very obvious plan. But it was this idea of using the rook on the 7th rank, and then this g6, right? Because again, his bishop, when I attack this, his bishop dropped back. Now the rooks are no longer connected, right? g6 would be much weaker if after rook takes, he didn't have to take with the king, right? Look at the game. Here with g6, if he could have taken back with the rook, he's getting pieces into the attack, right? Or at least the rook is nearby. Things might be okay. But instead, he's forced to play f6, and the rook completely stops it. And then there is no danger anymore. Yay! And so my queenside play, okay, I'm not extremely accurate here, and I have to kind of like just run through as fast as I can, almost pre-moving everything. If I were a little bit faster, I could have pulled it off against someone much higher rated. So maybe there isn't a heck of a lot to learn from this game. Rooks on the 7th rank are really, really good for defending against pawn storms, especially, again, once you play g6. Because if you don't play g6, Wow, this is way back there, right? Then h7 is a permanent weakness. And we can imagine the exact opposite. All right, here he could probably take. But in a situation like this, and then the rook is forced to move somewhere, is that he always has the bishop takes h6 sacrifice. This is very common in the King's Indian. This type of pawn structure, where the pawns are here, and it's really hard to defend, and sooner or later, white's going to sacrifice something and win. By playing g6 instead, again, he has no light squared bishop, he can't sacrifice, he has no attack, there's nothing he can do, and it's really up to black to see what can happen on the queen side. My opponent underestimated that, he was trying to attack too much, and I was able to jump in. So there you go, moral victories. I like moral victories. I like regular victories as well, but again, if I keep playing like this, things are going to happen. Like, good things. I'm going to get better. That's the idea. Again, I apologize. I haven't been posting much lately or doing anything. Again, I've got a pretty good excuse. Hopefully, I'll be playing some more long play games and stuff in the future. I'm not really in any position to do that. Arguably, I'm not in a position to make a video, but I did it anyway because I like you guys. All right, so that's that. Like, subscribe, all that's amazing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.